What's up, everybody? My name is William Jackson. I'm the executive director and founder of Village of Wisdom, and today I'm your host for Ashoka Live. I'm super excited to be here today and be in conversation with my brother Ethan Ashley. He leads an amazing organization called School Board Partners, and I've gotten a chance to know Ethan probably over the last 3 or 4 years or so, and y'all are in for a treat, is what I will say. I feel like the first time I met him, it was somewhere between him giving us like a sermon that we really needed in like a ed space or a prayer. All I know is that like half the room was crying. I'm always excited to get to hear from him today. And I had the pleasure of being able to introduce him to you all and ask a few questions. Um, Ethan, let's try to do something fun and also get the folks here in the chat, making sure y'all know how to use the Q&A function. Maybe introduce yourself for us. Give us two truths and a lie. And we'll go through that. And then folks in the chat, you all can kind of let us know what you think the lie is. And this will make introductions a little bit funner.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. No doubt. Let's do this. So, two truths and a lie. When you do this, I feel like you got to make sure that you don't slow down your pace on one of them because that just gives it
Facts.
away. Gives it away.
Uh-huh.
Gives it
Uh-huh.
away. So, let me see. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll start here. I started college before high school. I stayed dual enrolled throughout high school, and I graduated college a month after my 19th birthday. That's one. So I started college before high school. I stayed dual enrolled in college and high school, and then I graduated from college after my a month after my 19th birthday. So all that is
All of that is one. I
that's
was
one.
like, that was the whole thing.
That's all that's
Oh,
one.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Keep
yeah,
going. All right.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
with you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. See, like, we gotta see if the people are with us. You gotta see what the people with us.
Uh, uh,
Uh, I'm gonna do something fun. My favorite three TV shows right now include MTV The Challenge, Love Is Blind, and Love Island. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's a fact.
okay. We're
Three.
doing this in threes. Go ahead.
Three. I spend falls, excuse me, with my best friends from childhood to make sure that our kids are able to grow up knowing one another. And so we every year we get together and do sort of like a friends retreat.
Okay. That third one was not in threes. Interesting. All right. Well, we'll see what kind of guesses folks have. I guess I'll wait for my guess to let people
Okay.
populate.
I am I am curious. I'm curious on what we think. I can help. You know what? Well, I could give you a bonus one. How about this? Because I know it's important for us to talk a little bit about this. Because one of my proudest, yeah, I think, titles is that of father, and so
Mhm.
this one's fun too. Our 19-year-old had the opportunity to sort of go viral with over
Uh-huh.
100,000 views on TikTok, and it was the challenge where you your picture and ask the question at first glance, "What do you think my name is?" And according to TikTok, they believe she has Hispanic descent, that she is Maria. They literally renamed my daughter Maria, and it is absolutely hilarious in the family. And I just want to say, for everybody who's ever had anybody go viral, she now gets recognized in Walmart's, CVS as Maria, and not her actual name, which is Sage.
Wow. Okay. So you've given us three truths and a lie, or two truths and two lies, maybe three lies. We really don't know. We have a few people in the Q&A. Um, it looks like folks aren't really going for the TV show things. Um, Somebody is questioning you. They said it's a sneaky lie. There's no way to be dual enrolled the whole time. Um,
No, no, I was dual enrolled the whole time. That's actually a fact. It's actually how I ended up graduating at 19. And I did start college before high school, and it's largely because of school boards and the school board policy that existed at LAUSD. And so we can get into that. It's really what sparked my whole interest in being able to make sure that school boards around the country provided equal access and opportunity for kids, such that, my experience growing up in Compton, California, and not attending Compton Unified School Districts, but being able to attend LAUSD school districts by virtue of a policy that existed at LAUSD that allowed me to get bused to school for free, start college before high school for free, stay dual enrolled my whole term while I was in high school, and ended up finishing with almost a year's worth of credits going towards college. And again, I was 18 my senior year of college and finished a month af- after my 19th birthday.
Okay. Clearly, you were prepared for this. It didn't matter what I was going to ask you today. You were going to have a smooth entry. You're like one of those magicians. They're like 5 plus 5, and then somebody over there is like Thursday. It was Thursday, and they're like, "How did you know that?" Um, always impressive. So just to kind of give folks some context, we'll continue to kind of look at anything else that comes in the Q&A about folks' guesses. We have about 30 minutes here because we're Black. We've already used 7. But we've also done some things already. We've learned a little bit about your journey, Ethan, and how you've kind of got into school board partners and in this kind of important story of like, hey, this group of people who had power to impact hundreds of thousands of kids' lives. I'm assuming LAUSD is a pretty big district, maybe at least tens of thousands of kids' lives, and how that led to you really starting a journey and even that opportunity being placed inside of you. So, let's not assume everybody knows how awesome you are. Just tell us a little bit more about
Yeah,
school board partners and kind of contextualize that workforce, and we'll try to jump into it.
yeah, no doubt. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I'm actually coming from New Orleans, Louisiana. That's why there's a tree in the background because no matter,
I had questions.
yeah, whatever's happening in the world, you go from Christmas to Mardi Gras to you name the next festival, and we just make the decorate the tree. So I'm out of New Orleans. If you ever had the opportunity to visit, please come. We love you. We'd love for you all to be able to experience everything that we have to offer here. I was originally born in California. And as I told Will sort of here a second ago, my whole story from my upbringing with education and being able to think about systems level work came from my own experience of growing up in Compton, California, having a much different educational experience and access to opportunities than that of some of my colleagues who lived on the same street and block as me. And as a result of being able to finish college early, go off to law school, and graduated, and then ultimately started doing some criminal justice reform work, where I worked with a young man named Brian Stevenson to end juvenile life sentences in the state of Louisiana, and then jumped in the front of the school to prison pipeline and started doing educational policy work, and got picked up by another civil rights organization called Urban League, where we took Urban League of New Orleans to Urban League of Louisiana. And then I got elected to serve on the Orleans Parish School Board for 8 years. And during that time, when I got elected, what I realized quite simply was I thought I had the background, information, knowledge to be successful in the role. And what I realized quite quickly was that I had never seen $1 million, let alone $500 million budget, that I was responsible for figuring out how to, appropriate dollars to improve student outcomes. I wasn't an educator by trade. My mother was, my grandmother was, and they told me to go be a lawyer, and I did. And so, I quickly realized that, there has to be an organization or a training function allow me to go through a fellowship to sort of speed up my learning around how to improve student outcomes, their experiences, their environments, and their access. And it didn't exist. So I just was like, how about we start this? So I started it, and the goal when we first started, we started with about 20 individuals from around the country who were just interested in learning how to become better for kids and improve their outcomes. Largely majority minority students who, uh, by every uh, by every statistical category, has been filled with opportunity gaps, access gaps, opportunity gaps, learning gap, all the gaps that existed, uh, financial gaps. They're all the gaps. And like, so it was like, can we as adults stand in the gaps and figure out how to deal with those gaps and support those young people, because there are more me's that are left in communities around our country because they don't have access, they don't have really the exposure to be able to really get the type of education that I did. And so I was like, can we figure that out? Can I make my story the rule, not the exception? And that's what School Board Partners was sort of founded from. Now we're in 193 districts in terms of our impact. About impacted, I think we at this point have touched close to almost 600 school board members, and their responsibility for almost impacting the lives of about 8 million young people. What our goal, just so you know, is to really touch a quarter of, or 13 million young people, and get to 2,500 school board members and a network of leaders to, again, really sort of disrupt what has been the status quo of compliance education and figure out how we, again, are able to change outcomes, experiences, access, and ultimately environments for young people.
That's amazing. 8 million people already. Uh, I got to kind of sit with that. Um, and definitely as somebody who has children in school and who has been around education for the last 20 or so years, I've definitely seen how school boards have a really dramatic impact on what's available to our young people. And I think, even more so now as we think about the political climate. You kind of touched on this a little bit as we got into this, but just wondering if there's a little bit more that you want to draw out here, which is you started off to do this thing. I also really caught the very subtle Brian Stevenson name drop, which he was early on in my career too. But just curious about like as you're starting this thing and you're thinking about it, there's a lot of implications, right? Like potentially multi-layer implications. And what maybe because you talked about a lot of them,
Yeah.
maybe tell us like what was the surprise, right? Like what was the biggest like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this thing. I've been doing dope stuff probably for the last 5 to 10 years, although it's hard for me to kind of reconcile a lot of facts that you've given us. You graduated at 18, you got a 19-year-old daughter, you look like you're 35, you work for Brian Stevenson. But as you brought all that wisdom into place, tell us like what was most interesting, right? Maybe as a multi-layer thing, and what has been most difficult, right? The most difficult implication to work with.
Yeah, yeah. I think the first of all of that is true. Uh, I think the multi-layered, man, let me tell you, I thought I was just creating an organization that was like a training leadership development organization. Next thing
Hmm.
you know, I was like, oh, I think we might be being able to create an organization that sustains leaders in elected roles. And so we observe that people who are in our fellowship end up staying elected much longer than their counterparts, and they're much more representative of the populations in which they serve. We
Hmm.
also realized, we were like, I think we may be saving democracy. And this is a whole this is a crazy thing where I was like, this is no way. No way we're talking about this. And what we learned is that our fellows are more likely to enact policies that provide students and student voice to learn the democratic process, participate in the democratic process, give them a seat on the school board. So starting something new that's never happened. And so really getting that next generation of leaders thinking about how to sustain democracy in a moment where I think many of us think democracy is sort of, uh, in name only in this moment. And so, yeah, I think that became a thing. And then I think we were like, the one of the other things we just realized is that we may be like we're a nonpartisan organization, but the majority of our folks end up being Democrats, and we're like we may be feeding leadership in the Democratic Party, where they have sort of ceded and the power of school boards to really the far right in this moment. And what we see is our fellows go on to become city council people, state legislators, and we have, for
Mm.
the first time, one of our fellows running for Congress with the opportunity to really be successful here in Georgia.
Wow. So you've created a gateway drug for for people in
For
politics.
leadership. Yeah, that's it. For leadership. That's it. That's it. For leadership. Yeah, no doubt. That's how.
That's dope. That's dope. That's dope. And okay. So one thing I want to do here, because we're about halfway through, y'all. So we're not quite in the home stretch, but we've come further than we have to go. So if you got questions, please drop those in the Q&A function. I'd love to get to some of those questions, guaranteeing that I'm not going to get to all of them, but would love to see what the people want to hear from Ethan before we get out of here. Got another question for you since we don't have a lot of time. Gonna keep it real light. You just dabbled a little bit with the current political climate here in our country, this place we call America. And I guess I'm just curious, right, given the context, or given whatever context, I mean, you're in New Orleans, we got Christmas trees up, it's August, so you do whatever you want to do. What should the folks listening be most afraid of, and what should they be most encouraged by?
Yeah, I think really the most encouraged is that people are paying attention, people are voting,
Mhm.
people are showing up, I think, in ways with and for one another that I don't think we've seen in a long time. I think we've been siloed, but now I think some of us are going into our silos and becoming stronger, better, making those silos actually, have some real depth to them. Systems. We're watching, philanthropy and others try to figure out ways to not just put band-aids on solutions, but sort of go deeper. And I think that's a great thing in this moment. Let me tell you what we should all, I think, just be on the lookout for. I don't know about worried. I think that's probably the right word. I try to be worried for nothing, but I'm not always successful. But I want to say we're moving into what essentially is a pre-1979 worldview, which is, but prior to the Department of Education being created here in the country. And when you think about what pre-1979 context was, which I think in this moment could be considered both a good thing and a bad thing. We have a very clear idea of what happened during that time period. And I think we also have a very clear promise of leadership saying we're going to make America great again. We're going to take us back to a time where whatever great was to a certain group of individuals. And I think we need to go study like what happened after Brown and between 1979 because school boards were different. Their
Mm.
authority, their power, what they did with it, attended school zones sort of happened that was layered on to sort of, some of these uh, red line communities. So you have the essential breakdown in policy that sort of cemented that kids of certain color weren't able to go to school with one another. And it's basically, when you get out of slavery, then they go into, all the efforts to recreate whatever slavery was for the next generation is essentially what
Mm.
happened in school board policy after Brown. And what folks, I always want to give this context. Brown, there was many cases consolidated in one. We all know that. What most of us
Mm.
don't realize is that in Brown, the most important individuals, while I love Thurgood Marshall, I went to Howard Law, all the things, while we love him, he's not the most important individual in the Brown versus Board of Education decision. It actually is the boards of education that were the most important individuals in all those cases. And why do I say that? because in the Topeka, Kansas case in particular, they were the only school board that actually, after the case was filed, fired their separatist segregationist superintendent about 8 months after they denied Miss Brown access to the school, to the elementary school. After an election that happened in April and three of their board members turned over, that new board fired that pro-segregationist superintendent. They then integrated their elementary school before the Brown versus Board of Education decision came down, where other school boards essentially closed, some of them closed their school districts completely. They just was
Hmm.
like, we're not even doing school no more. And so when you think about who has the most power and authority, many of us only know the context of that power and authority in relation to COVID. When you parent, you know what it was. Either your
Yeah.
school was open or it was shut down. Either you became a teacher, or you
Mhm.
know all the things, or the iPad, all the stuff. That's probably the most recent time that I think many of us can sort of understand what that experience of power was like in 1979, pre 1979. And so, you know, now we have to equip, many of our school board members are not equipped with the training and development to know how to use that pre 1979 power in a way that protects young people, particularly young people who come from marginalized and oppressed communities.
Yeah. So there's a group of questions here that I think I can kind of group together for sake of time. And it has a lot to do with what I think you just queued up for us. Because what I hear you saying is that history is a great teacher, um, which otherwise people have said before for sure. Um, and there's a lot that we could learn from how folks did it back then, right after Brown versus Board, or even during Brown versus Board. The questions kind of all hint around this idea of you are training people to take on these powerful positions in the midst of the dismantling of the Department of Education or great reductions in employees that are working there, right? And so these things are going to have budget impacts, right? Obviously, like when you take away funding from the federal government to dispense out to local departments of education, you're going to take money out of the pot, right? Not all of it, but some of it for sure. And then there's also kind of politically, there seems to be some attention towards how we reduce curriculum, how we kind of cherry pick what we want to see in the curriculum and the books that are given to young people. And this is something that I'll even put my little extra on it. Being a school board member is so incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Right, there is a political cascade of events and ideas. And so you make this decision now, and actually you won't see what happens 2 to 3 years from now. And you have to have, I think, a vision for the future, along with a strategic thought process. And I guess for the sake of to get back to your like, let us not worry, right? Let us
Yeah.
be faithful in our good works,
There you
um,
go. Come
and,
on. Come
and
on.
and show people a dream, you know. Tell us either real or manifested. How does your training help somebody see that at a practical level? Give us maybe a concrete example if you can, or just a vision of the future, and how somebody that's joining school board partners now is going to make a 2030 that's going to be good and beautiful for our children.
Yeah, no doubt. So I will. There is probably a couple examples. I'd love to jump to Phoenix, Arizona.
Mhm.
Arizona in context is sort of a battleground state for those of us who are just familiar with the context, meaning, you know, they're like either blue or red, depending on what's happening. So they sort of purple. And that gives you
Mhm.
context to, you know, why I think there's such an incredibly important place to try to figure out, can we get this right when there's an equal amount of tug of war on what people want to see happen. And so in a place like Phoenix, Arizona, or Arizona in general. I was right outside of Phoenix, Tempe Union. We had the opportunity to sort of work with their board and board members. And during our experience with them, we ended up being able to implement a new governance model, which is empowered governance. So we have a whole we have a whole governance model that we train folks on,
Okay.
not the traditional compliance model. So that's
Mhm.
historically post 1979, a lot of compliance, a lot of compliance
Mm.
focus. Now we are trying to train our board members on how to deal with uh, again any equity issues, gaps in systems, gaps in services, gaps in funding, address those to improve outcomes for students that are on the margins, right? So it's a
Yeah.
clear focus, clear progress monitoring. So our folks are holding the line around creating policies that address those issues, progress monitor across those issues in ways that I think districts aren't. Let me acknowledge this. They're led by a 21-year-old leader. Their board is
School
led
board.
school board. This
And
young this
that person is on the school board at
that
21.
that person was elected at
Uh-huh.
19, was a former school board, was a former student board member,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately has led their district to one, implement mental health care and supports to allow for young people post-pandemic to show how much they care in order to listen to them about what they need to do academically. So they put their money where their mouth was with kids first care.
And this is
Second,
a school, this person is a part of school board partners?
yeah. And
Oh,
their whole board. So they put money where the mouth was. Their superintendent believed in this mental health. After mental health, they then started doubling down on accountability around education and development and how they can get high quality instruction materials, literacy, all the things that they needed to do to improve their status as a district. For the first time ever last year, now, mind you, we've been working with them for only 3 years.
uh-huh.
Their school district is an all A rated school district. All their schools got an A for the first time in
Wow.
their district's history. And they are led by a 21-year-old. And so when you think about, what the next generation of leadership looks like or what the next generation of focus needs to be, is equipping all board members with the opportunity to say, how do you protect kids that need it the most? How do you deal with disparities that exist in the system the most? How do you progress monitor against those disparities? How do you create policies that allow for that to take place? And I say this all the time, good governance is anti-racist governance, and you shouldn't have to beat your chest about either one of them. They are the same. And so if you
Mm.
aren't doing anti-racist governance, you're not doing good governance. And so this in this moment where people are sort of anti-DEI, all the things, wanting folks to sort of, I think, beat on their chest about the stuff. The
Yeah.
most important thing is, we don't need people who are just saying the words for the sake of saying the words. We need folks
Yeah.
who are acting in the words. And that's what our board members are doing on a day-to-day basis. They're putting resources to those things. They're putting policies in place that will outlive them. They're creating legacies in students to make sure students are able to see how and what is supposed to happen, as well as community. So there becomes a switch. It lives on beyond you. So your students are equipped, your community is equipped to hold you accountable in a way in which they see your board sort of being different than it's ever been. And then you get to see progress at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, I mean, I love this. I hear faith without works is dead. I hear that accountability from community creates long-lasting stability.
No doubt.
I think a lot of times we worry, especially in public schools, about the turnover of a superintendent, but you're saying that the capacity of the community and its engagement will allow for the sustainability of good practices, which I think people just need to hear again and maybe put Ethan on repeat as you think about what it means to create an ideal district. And my last question, is when is the 60 minutes? Like what? Because this sounds like the story that everybody needs to hear when it comes to what good governance could look like.
Well,
That's not a real question, but so we're at 11:30, frequently if you've ever been in a black church, what happens now here in the 21st century is that the pastor that is up there looks at a clock on the wall that is counting down time and the time runs off. Uh, and he keeps going. So that's what we're gonna do right now, just in good service. You know what I'm saying? In good service, in good
come
service.
on, let's take it back.
So one more thing, because they always say, I got one more thing. I got one more thing. Ethan,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what I see a couple of follow-up questions. But really I'm giving you the last word, right? What is your one more thing? I'll give you some essences of what people are talking about, but if you had to say one more thing before you get up out of here, on top of what would students wish they knew as an adult, or what did they I think the question that that person is trying to convey is like how young people think about adult friendships and like how that plays a part in this work, which I think you actually kind of spoke to in what you just said. Um, but yeah, I'm giving you the last word. I'm giving you the one more thing before we open up the doors. And so, yeah, what you got for us, Ethan? Take us home.
I think in this moment, um, I probably just want to acknowledge that so I think about this idea of us needing to be strong. Uh,
Hmm.
and there's a lot going on in the world, but the poet says, "Be strong. We're not here to play, dream, or jiff. We have hard work to do and heavy loads to lift. Shun not strife. Face it, for it's God's gift. Be strong. Say not the days are evil, nor who's to blame. Fold thy hands in aqueous. Stand up, speak out bravely in God's name. Be strong. It matters not how deeply entrenched the wrong, how hard the battles. Go on, faint not, fight on. For tomorrow, come strong, be strong." In a moment like now, across not just our country, but the world, chaos is happening. And I will tell you, in community, that is a place where I think we are allowed to be strong and we need to be strong. And so I'm just asking folks in this moment, don't be weary, don't give up. If you are curious about, what my message is to school board members in this moment, it is to equip yourself. It is to not give up. It is to be strong. It is to not get weary. It is to hold the line. And it is to think innovatively about how you do that in the context of a 21st century learning, 22nd century learnings, whatever we can do here to push the needle. You have the ability to make sure that 50 years from now, the people aren't dealing with the same simple question, where are we headed? And the answer is somewhere much better than we've been before. So be strong.
Mm. Um, Ethan, Ashley, thank you so much. For sharing some of your time with us today, for sharing with us your vision. Thank you for the work that you are doing. 8 million young people and growing, benefiting from your work. Uh, Thank you for the integrity that you lead with. I am better for this conversation, and I'm sure others are too. If you are feeling generous, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this on Ashoka Live, but whatever. Schoolboardpartners.org is the site that you should go to. And as I look at the top of the site, you will notice that there's a circle, an oval orange thing, and it says donate there. And what I want you to do is move your finger over to that button and hit it and figure out an amount um, that feels good to your soul,
Your
um,
spirit.
and invest in our future, invest in this good work. Thank you so much, Ethan. I really really appreciate you, and I hope everybody that's listening and that does listen enjoyed this time and walks away with some work that feels good for you.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashoka. All
Oh
right.
yes, thank you so much, Shoka. Appreciate y'all for allowing this platform.